Good afternoon, everyone. This is Scott DeCamp with CatchMark SportsNet. We are on the set in the podcast room, and there's a bunch of sirens blaring outside. And I'm wondering, Tate just got here, so I'm kind of wondering
there has
now.
to be correlation. He ran in, shut the door, closed the blinds.
He goes, I'm about 6 minutes out, but I don't know.
Caused some mayhem behind me, all the way from Indian Bay over in White River Township out to here, but made it.
No, thanks for joining us, guys. Co-host, and we're getting, what are we getting? Some playback here? I wonder if I got that on my, I think I got that on my laptop right now. Freaking rookie here. But, so, no, we're here with a season 4, episode 3 of the CatchMark Sports Podcast. We got co-host Ken Byard. Hey, Ken.
Scott, how you doing?
Good. You just getting back from sunny Florida?
Yeah,
look pretty great.
Don't adjust your screens. I'm that dark. Well, destined sun.
Yep, and then Tate, you had your spring break a little bit ago.
Yeah, that was
you
a
end up
few
doing?
weeks ago. Not much, just playing a little bit of basketball. I mean, I did get to go to a Pacers game because, I want to watch the Pistons, but watching them lose by 30 isn't that exciting. So,
Yeah.
And I'm going to watch Joel Embiid take on the Pacers at Indiana. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So spring break for here, my kids go to Whitehall, so they had it last week, but we just stayed put this time. Got some stuff to take care of at home with some home improvement stuff and whatnot, so we're trying to kind of save the money, but we'll see. Yeah. The dang government owes us some money, and we still haven't seen it, so.
Well, don't hold your breath.
Yeah. Anyhow, enough of this jibber jabber here. We've got a guest joining us today. It's Tim Genson, retiring Mason County Central AD and longtime basketball coach. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's great having you in.
Yeah.
I just hope that you can get a word in edgewise with these guys and me.
People generally think I get enough words in.
That's never been a problem.
No.
Huh?
I just got to keep away from profanity.
Well, good luck.
So your spring break was a little different. It's a week earlier.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's always
we came back
the
last.
up north schools are.
Yeah, we came back last Monday.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, we have Dave Dusenberry. We have comments on here. If you look at the screen, Dave Dusenberry, we get comments, and he's like, there you are. We started a little bit late. I'm not going to say why. We started a little bit late.
Is it TikTok Tate? Or
Yeah.
Now is it late Tate?
Tardy Tate.
Tardy Tate.
Oh, my goodness.
That's why, Dave. Next time you see him, just give him a little, but not too much, because we still love Tate. So.
Yeah, I guess.
But you had a good spring break, too?
Had a wonderful spring break. Came home alive. So that was important.
down in Florida?
Yeah, we go down in the Orlando Disney area, and that's kind of been our go-to for a lot of years, and good friends down there, and it's been wonderful, and it's hard to beat the weather, and it's really hard to come home. So, and it got really hard this year to come home.
I'm sure it gets progressively harder each year.
Yeah, because you sit there and go, well, they don't really need me anymore. No, it's just it's nice. It's I'm not, I've coached basketball a long time in the winter, but I'm not a winter. Other than that, I'm not a winter person. I there's no hunting, there's no fishing, there's no ice fishing, there's no skiing, there's no snowmobiling. There, and it wasn't that way before or any time. So I mean, it's. Getting away in the winter is something I'd love to be able to do down the road, but we'll see how that fits in.
Did you get a little nostalgic this break? Like, hey, this is my last one, and like cried over your beer and
there was no tears. There was no tears. But we did talk about that. I said, my wife's Carrie, and I said, Carrie, we don't have to go on spring break anymore. The schedule's going to be a little more. She works in banking and for Shelby State Bank, and so she's got a little more. I mean, she's got plenty of vacation days, but we always work it around obviously the spring break time, and I don't have to do that, I mean, assuming, what I might be doing next or something like that.
Welcome to off-season pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Before we dive too far into this, let's thank our sponsors. We have Grieve Law, West Michigan Joint Divorce Lawyers, Big Stone Therapies, Green Ridge Realty with Chris Dykman and Sarah Reel, North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems in Michigan with John Botten. Coldwell Banker with the aforementioned Dave Dusenberry, who also made another comment later, Tater, on the comment. So that's his 2 cents on that. Scheid Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. And a special thank you to our title sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage Lakeshore. You can get them at 460 West Western Avenue in Muskegon, or give them a call at 231-332-6500. And then Durga Insurance Group. You can locate them at 1535 Far Road, Norton Shores, or reach them at 231-744-9106. Hit those like and subscribe buttons on our CatchMark SportsNet YouTube channel. Make sure you like and follow us on our social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And then as a reminder, hit us up in the comments, which Dave Dusenberry is. I'm sure Sean Hadke will be in here in no time because he's here every week as well. We did take last week off. We're back in it this week, and pleased to have Tim with us. So if you give us a little background, let's talk a little bit about that. MCC alumnus, and just what was it like growing up in that district, in that community?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of things that have changed. Like the downtown looks very much the same as far as storefronts and things like that, but we just don't have the same business community that we did when I was growing up and as a kid. So, yeah, I graduated from MCC in '85. Played some basketball and ran a little, believe it or not, ran some track and cross country, and even played baseball one season while I was in high school. So it was a good experience. After I graduated, I stuck around, went to the community college up there, West Shore Community College, and that fall there was this. They were looking for some middle school basketball coaches at MCC, and I thought, wow, I can do that, and so I applied. And next thing I knew, I was coaching 7th grade basketball, and I did that for a couple of years, along with coaching some middle school track, and decided I was going to go to Central, and I had been accepted to Central after, while I was in high school. I was not accepted the second time I applied to go to Central because didn't quite have the same academic focus on the West Shore that I had. And so, and I kind of applied late. I did it, kind of late spring. They were probably all set with their enrollment at that point. And I remembered I'd done a little summer work for a youth corps thing, and a guy said, "Hey, when you're getting ready to go to CMU, let me know." So I got a hold of him and I said, "Hey, Bob," I said, trying to go to CMU this fall. So this would have been fall '87, and he said, "Oh," I said, "Well, but I said I haven't been that dedicated to my classwork. I mean, it wasn't horrible. I mean, it was like a 2.4 average or something like that." And I said, "But CMU, didn't enroll me and stuff." And he said, "Well, let me see what I can do." And so I was working at a job I was working at this beach store in Ludington. And all of a sudden, in comes Bob with this list of things that I have to do, where I have to be, what boom, 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 and don't screw it up, and that sort of thing. And so, I was able to go to CMU for 3 years. Graduated in '90. Had an absolutely horrible student teaching experience, and it was had no desire to go into education. It was terrible, and
you weren't in his class, were you?
No.
I would have been a junior.
So I went to I came home and I kind of thought, man, 5 years, what have I got? What am I going to do? And so I never even looked for a job. Wasn't sure. Was doing some odd jobs around the area. Actually ended up working for a local surveyor. And that fall, so it had been the fall of '90, and we used to have. Here's one of the things that doesn't exist in the Scottville area anymore. We used to have a really, they kind of brought a mini version of it back here recently, but we used to have a 3-day event called the Scottville Harvest Festival. So that Monday after that, so it's like mid-September. I get a call from Jim Jacoviak. He was the elementary principal at the time at Mesa County Eastern. Said, "Hey, I understand you're certified in this and that, and we need an interim person for the year." And I got to thinking, okay, maybe it's a good time to check it out. And so I think Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning. I can't remember which day was the first day, but I do remember this. Just the only way a dad can give you a pat on the back. So, my dad, as I'm walking out the door, he says, "Hey, teach him something, even if it's wrong. Teach him something." And
Love it.
that was his I remember when I was younger, I had a cousin that was getting in a little bit of trouble with the law. And I was 12 or 13, and we were riding around, and he looked at me and he says, I'll get you out of jail one time, okay? Like, he's mad at my cousin, but he's getting mad at me, about all this and stuff like that. And I said, okay. I still haven't used my get out of jail free card, by the way. But so that is just kind of way Dad, gives you a little push. So
you might want to hang on to that one, by the way.
Yeah, well, I'm going to
be retiring. You might need that one.
I hope he's around. So, thankfully he still is. But I did that interim job at Mesa County Eastern, coached JV basketball. Actually, that spring I coached track at MCC again at the high school, the varsity, and then the next year I just subbed in the area, and then the fall in '92, they needed an athletic director at Mesa County Central. I can do that, or whatever. And so they hired me as a part-time AD. And I can tell you, and Ken, you've been around it and stuff like that. The only thing part-time was the pay. Okay, there was the time and the involvement is there is no part-time because you're taking phone calls, you're taking emails, you're doing things. I don't want to say it's 24/7, but you've got to be available. Whether it's coaches, whether it's parents, whether it's athletes, fellow staff members, the principal, superintendent, whatever. You've got to be available. So it was. I started out as a part-time AD, working full-time hours, and at a part-time pay, and that was it was a good learning experience. And the next year they put me in the classroom, and it's kind of it's what I've done. A couple times I was asked if I wanted to go administration fully and stuff, and I just always had a connection to the kids in the classroom, and it was funny because I had such a horrific student teaching experience that initially I never thought I was going to do that, and then I ended up there. So it's been so this was my 31st year at MCC. I'm like at 33 and a half, and never bought any years. There for a long time you could buy 5 years in Michigan. But I didn't do that. I should have done it when I was coaching like 7th grade basketball.
Yeah, you would have got it for chump change.
Yeah. I never did. So, I got, like I said, a little over 33 and a half will be on the Michigan, office of retirement, and that'll get started this summer at some point.
Nice. So your sister's an assistant AD, which is not the same as a part-time AD, although maybe some similarities there. I don't know. Is she logging a lot of hours too?
Oh, she's logging out hours. She'd probably agree with the same statement that Mr. Genson made over here about the pay, but the amount of time that you're working.
Right. Yeah.
And, as Ken, you were in education for a long time. I mean, and when you're in some level of director supervisory role, I mean, you're not really off the clock, so to speak. And even though you got quote unquote the summers off, you're still working, you're still prepping, you're still doing all sorts of things. And but there's a lot of there's a lot of paydays, as we call it, that you get these little notes or you get these little things from kids from the past or parents or something like that, and that can be a pretty nice payday. You have a pretty good moment. About. Sometimes you wonder what kind of lives you touch, and then all of a sudden you get that note or you get that call or you get something and you go, I guess I'm doing something right. So,
yeah, I mean, no question that that job in particular, to me, is the hardest job in the district in terms of demands. It only got more demanding with cell phones and being available all the time. Like Tim said, there's no real off hours, but those notes and thank yous, they really go a long way. People don't realize just how much those mean to guys that do the jobs that Tim's doing. And so if you're listening, it's okay to thank an AD and a coach who's working for pennies and just really wanting to do what's best for kids and to put them in situations and programs and situations to be successful. So say thanks.
Yeah. Teacher, it's a little off topic, but, a guy who kind of mentored me as far as teaching, the classes that I teach and stuff. His name is Ted Winkle. He, unfortunately, we lost him Friday, and it floods back. You see on Facebook the posts and stuff and the memories. And, I think to myself, I'm sure he got a lot of those little, positive notes or words, but sometimes you forget to do it. And you think about the impact that those people had on your lives. And there's a lot, so it's a nice gesture. If you've had that teacher, you've had that coach, whoever, let them know, because it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, those are great words. Sorry,
I didn't keep a lot of stuff when I cleaned out my office for the last time, but I know exactly where my box of little notes and stickies and cards, and I kept all those.
Yeah. Oh, well, sorry for the loss and to the loss of the district and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's even in my job, it's kind of similar. We lead not same, but somewhat parallel lives with hours you keep, and like you said, you're always on your phone.
Oh yeah,
dealing with something.
Well, the reason the thank yous and stuff are nice because those you don't hear as often, and I've always I guess weighed and looked at the scales of the job or the work you've done by the fewer phone calls, the fewer emails and stuff like that, because when it's not going good.
Oh, you hear about it.
and when something's wrong, I mean, you can, everybody talks about athletics, it's just sports, it's just athletics. Well, you know what? There's a couple things you can fill a gym up with a board meeting and a school board meeting, and that's a problem with athletics, and it's a problem with transportation. One of those two things. You announce that you're not going to buy microscopes for another 10 years or something like that, and you might get 6 people at the board meeting. But which I'm not saying is the right thing, but I'm just saying that it athletics, even though it's supposedly this, it's a sports, it's just fun, it's so fun and games and all that stuff. It's also something that people are extremely passionate about. And if you announce that we're getting rid of all the sub-varsity teams or whatever the case may be, right, you can fill a gym up with a meeting just like that. And so it does, and it's also one of the best PR components, I think, for schools is athletics. It's, it gets reported on, obviously, probably now in the area. I kind of laugh, in the day, when I get done with a basketball game, I'd have Ludington Daily News and maybe 9 and 10 or 7 and 4 up north. I'd send the score to, and then the Chronicle. And, today, we got, half a dozen or more outlets that want, the results. And, so I think we're getting more coverage. It's just in various places.
Right. It just looks different.
Yeah,
it does.
Right. And that's something, it's different for old. I have I got to make sure I have the apps. I don't, and I got to, so the old dog has to learn a few things once in a while.
So how many different hats have you worn? You talked about teaching. You talked, AD job, basketball coach, all those things.
Yeah, I've coached,
golf.
Coached golf, coached basketball, coached track and field. Been the athletic director both at the middle school and the high school. Taught. A wide variety. I've been a member of our Mesa County Central Ed Foundation for probably 20 years now, at least. That it's not a required thing. It's just more of just something you want to give back to, and So I've done a lot of things, and as far as coaching, and you have, you just do what you need to do to make it work for everybody.
So why is now the right time? You're retiring, and why? What made now the time?
Well, it was gonna, in my head a couple of years when I re-upped my teaching certificate, must have been 19 because it's a 5-year deal, and so 24. is the last, is when it expires. So I knew it was either going to be this year or next year. And, our son got engaged. He got married. He and his wife Mary live downstate by Dundee, actually right by Cabela's. So
that worked out.
Yeah.
well, I don't hunt, I don't fish, I don't do any of the winter, other stuff other than basketball. So it's cool. I've been in there. It's a pretty cool. It's almost like touring a bit of an outdoors museum type thing. And
you could have brought some more wrestlers back to this area from Dundee.
Well, he was. It was funny. He told me, "Hey, we were state champions again," and I said, "We?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, I live in Dundee, And I was like, "Oh, okay, that was quick." But they live downstate, and her family's in Milan, and the opportunities for both of them are so much better and more down in that area. They're not gonna drift back this way. I mean, I'd be very shocked, other than for a vacation or something like that. So for my wife and I, it was just a discussion. She'd always, when we go down, she hated the 4-hour drive down and the 4-hour drive back, and it's like, well, maybe now would be a good time where we can gain some flexibility. It might lead to us moving down that way, and I don't know. But also, we can kind of move around. Like I said, her job offers maybe a little more year-round flexibility than what, when you're in school, like, Ken can attest to, when school gets basically going in August. I mean, other than you got the Christmas break, you got a few days at Thanksgiving, and some days here and there, and then basically even though you have these breaks, but you're kind of you're locked into them. Whereas if you're in the private sector, you can kind of plan like some different times. But it's really about gaining some flexibility, and kind of interestingly, my mom had some health issues this winter that kind of came on out of nowhere. She's really doing well right now, but early mid-February, all of a sudden she was having some issues, and it's just nice to be able to have a little greater flexibility, for them, and to be able to, see my son and see my daughter-in-law, and so it just seemed like the right time. It wasn't Jeff Mount, our superintendent, and Jeff Tuca, our principal. When I sat down with them in August and said, where I was kind of looking and leaning, it wasn't the most. I don't think it was the conversation they were looking forward to having, which is a compliment. I mean, it's nice when the people who are your, supervisors and bosses, and they don't really want to see you leave. So, and that's the nice part. I had somebody ask me, they want you to go, and I go, no. I said it was just the opposite. So, but there's, it just. There's something about it that felt right, and I haven't turned in my stuff at the end of January with my intent, and I haven't regretted or not wanted to do that. So,
I mean, when you know,
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Just there's something in your gut that says it's the right time.
Yeah.
And you just succumb to that and kind of trust that there's a plan.
Yeah, and I want to do so. I got some irons in the fire, some things that I'm looking at, and hopefully gonna, something's gonna hit and take, and it's not. It's more like a kind of retirement from one, but to do something else. I certainly have. I don't have enough hobbies to not be doing something. So, I definitely plan on working. It's just, it'll just be in a different capacity, in a different way. And, there's some things that, you kind of would like to do.
What are things that are going to be the hardest to let go of?
Well, I definitely, I'm going to miss the kids, and I miss kids that graduated a long time ago. And, I think that's number one. If you're in education and if you don't miss kids, you shouldn't have been in education.
Fair.
I mean, they keep you young. I think they keep you. they hip to the new words. I had a girl today. I learned something today. She goes, I'm just keeping up with the tea. And I'm like, what's the tea? And she says, it's gossip, Mr. Genson. It's gossip. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. You know that, Tate?
Yes,
yeah.
I
See,
know.
I know. Okay. And
impressive.
I'm like, I don't know what the tea is, but okay. And so as soon as she had caught up with the tea, I could speak to her at that point.
But then it's changed by then. By the time you catch up, it's something different.
That was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. So, but that's probably the number one, and the colleagues, the people you work with, the people like, right here, I don't see you guys all the time and everything, but it's obviously it won't be, that kind of, frequency or conversation. So there's a lot of things. The ADs that I work with and that I have worked with, it's been a wonderful group of people in the West Michigan Conference for 31 years. It's been fantastic. And I'll tell you a little. So I'm obviously the longest serving. Jeff Cook's 1 year behind me, so he's going to take the mantle next year. And I've never been the oldest person at the table, so I got that going for me. I've always had people older than me at the West Michigan Conference table. Well, Cookie is one, but it's just kind of funny when you serve something a long time, and you never end up as the oldest one there, which might be good. It's okay, but it's been wonderful. The principals, the ADs. It's been wonderful. I think the move we made in the last 2 years is going to be good in the long run for the West Michigan Conference. We're going to have some growing pains with it, and we're already seeing some things that we need to take a look at here and there. But it's funny when I say we got to take a look at. I won't be that person.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't have to.
You can read about it.
Yeah, but. It's been really good. So I think mostly the people, whether it's the kids, whether it's colleagues, whether it's that's the thing that I think I'd miss the most.
Yeah, we have like a whole line of questioning that we sent you, but I kind of want to get Tate involved too. What do you remember about this guy on the sideline coaching? What were your impressions of Coach Genson?
Be nice.
I think from what I remember, it sounds like you might have been a little bit maybe err on the side of trying to keep it intense.
Yeah.
Maybe at halftime or during the game at practice. And I feel like I never once played an MCC team where they didn't play hard. And you could say that about a few teams, but MCC especially. Loose ball, I almost questioned, do I really want to dive on this ball when I'd play MCC? So I'd say there was a lot of hard-fought games with MCC, a lot of guys that I really didn't want guarding me because I knew they were going to scrap, and they were always a pretty solid defensive team from what I remember. So,
well, thanks. Yeah, I think that's one of the nicest compliments from Tate, but also from like officials. I've said over the years, your guys always play hard, and that's a nice thing. It's funny, and I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody, but several years ago at North Muskegon, we were playing. It was like our third or fourth game, and it was at our place. And North Muskegon was really good. I think TJ and Jesse Cook, and it was a good
Chandler.
It was a good team. We played them. I don't know, third, fourth game, and we literally were going through the motions. And I was. Now we weren't very good. We were not very good, and it was. Jeffrey Carrier's junior year, and we had a couple decent years there, but we were not real. We weren't real strong, and but the one thing you can do is you can play hard, right? You can that's one thing you can control. You can't control. You can't control the shots. You can't control where the ball bounces. There's a lot of parts you can't control, but you can't control your effort. And I was like, man, oh man, and I was walking in the locker room, and one of my former players was helping me, and he said, it's an Oak Ridge Montague football week, Coach. And I said, well, what? He said, well, when we have a tendency, because he played football, he said, when you play in Oak Ridge and Montague, you kind of know what the result's going to be, and I said, well, that doesn't go. That doesn't work. And they. we had a little paint coming off the walls after that game, and it really wasn't about the result. But what I was proud of them is the second time when we went down to North Muskegon and played. I think it was like a 6-point game going into the fourth quarter. Now we weren't, we couldn't match up to the athletes and the players that North Muskegon had that year, but we competed, and that's that was what I was proud of, and so I do appreciate hearing that from Tate, and because I guess that would be the biggest thing I'd like to hang my X's and O's, a lot of people better, and from that standpoint, but it was always important for me that we gave our best effort.
Mm.
So while we're on the topic of basketball, the division's 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should it be 6? Should there be 8? Should there be 5?
Well, it's interesting because we just got all that. We got all the classification stuff came out last week, and as you probably picked up on, our boys basketball is like what Hart's boys basketball was. We are the smallest D2 next year. The girls are still in D3. I think, I think 6 would be appropriate. I think, but I do know that it's going to be a major push from Mark Ewell this fall in his update and surveys of I think looking at like sports with 600 or more that don't already have more than 4 to at least get up to 5. And I know that the they want to keep everything for basketball at Michigan State, at least the finals. I don't think you could keep the semis at Michigan State.
Someone mentioned that.
We've had that conversation.
And Mark had mentioned at a meeting that he felt comfortable that it would be a long day, but they could get 5 finals in at Breslin on a girls' Saturday and a boys' Saturday. And actually next year it's flip flop. By the way, the boys are first next year, and the girls are second next year for the schedule next year. Mm-hmm. We did that a few years ago too. I think that it's kind of funny. I was looking at how the things are divided because, we have 7 cross-country state championships. We have 7 track state championships. And this isn't a knock on the UP or anything, but 3 of those are in the Upper Peninsula. Mm-hmm. And I think they have 3 state champions for 43 schools. Okay? It doesn't balance very it doesn't balance very well. So I definitely think basketball. I think volleyball, baseball, softball. They should all probably be looked at as at least a 5th division. Yeah. What we've I know one of your questions. I don't mean to steal anybody's thunder, but you were talking about kind of the state of high school athletics, and I think one of the changes that I have seen over my 30 years is I think it's less about class and division as it is about metro area versus rural area. I'll just use North Muskegon as a great example. I mean, they're not the smallest school in the league, but they traditionally had been for a lot of years, but have been very competitive and offer more sports than a lot of us with the tennis and
all the co-ops,
golf, hockey, and stuff. You got a lot of participation out of kids there, and but there's a little bit of a different socioeconomic makeup, versus, some of us a little bit, but it's also, I think, a metro thing, and not that it's metro per se, but the access to summer, out of season, different things is so much. I mean, you put a AYBT team together or an AAU team in Scottville together, or Mason County for that matter, you're driving an hour minimum for a tournament. Right. And so, hour to Muskegon, hour and a half to Grand Rapids, 2.5 to Lansing, Mount Pleasant, another hour and a half plus, maybe 2, you just, to do those things. And so the resource and access. So I think that's been one of the biggest differences. So, and we've also seen in some of these metro areas like Flint, we were talking about the other day, where, I couldn't believe Flint and Saginaw. We look at Saginaw High is a Division II school in basketball. Flint Beecher, which was a
D3.
Yeah, they're D3, but I think they could be D4, but they choose to play up,
right?
So you've got we've had these communities that. I think, I don't even know if Flint Northwestern even exists as a school. If it does, it's so small. And Tate doesn't remember these times, but, Andre Rice and Glenn Rice, the guys, Anthony Pendleton, you can just keep going, that came out of Flint, the players that came out of Flint in the 80s and the 90s. And it's just, it doesn't exist anymore.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So how about the shot clock? Coming? Not coming?
I think it'll be here. I think it'll be here within probably 2 years, 2 to 3 years.
Too.
Yeah, I it's funny. I kind of laughed at the MHSA a little bit. I hadn't been on a committee in forever. Okay, and next month I'm on the site selection committee for basketball. It's like my 4th or 5th committee for the year. And when I was down there, I said, "Did you guys know I was retiring because you guys stuck me on every committee?"
Make it hard for you to leave.
Get the most out of it.
And I enjoy it. It's nice because you work with people throughout the state, and concerns are similar, but they're different. And I kind of chuckle when on the site selections when they talk about, they're going to have to drive 45 minutes if they're at that regional. I'm like, that's my short trip, during the regular season, So, it's just funny how it's when you're in a more populated area that a 45-minute trip is a long trip, and where we're looking at a 45-minute trip being, well, we're only going 45 minutes, and
it's just a Tuesday,
right? But it's fun to be on those committees, but definitely I see the shot clock coming. It's like anything, you gotta, I'm guessing when they put the 3-point line in, they talked about it for several years so people could kind of plan, budget,
right.
Because the thing with the shot clock is, unlike the 3-point line, you just put the line in and away we go. The shot clock is going to require at least another person on your scorers table. And as somebody who finds people to work at scorers tables, trying to hook somebody else in there, and then you're just simply responsible for that. One of the talks was about that was to engage some of the older retired officials to be shot clock people, so we'll see what happens.
What do you think on that topic on shot clock, Tate?
You
being a guy who's playing collegiately now and just got out of high school.
I'm a big supporter of the shot clock because if one thing you see that changes from level to level, elementary, middle school, high school up, it gets faster. And one thing that's where the West Michigan Conference, I think, really falters, it's such a slow game. Like, even up as you go up to play even further down south or just in bigger schools, it's so much faster. And so I think when we do introduce the shot clock, we'll start to see maybe some of the coaches that have run like a flex offense, like a Zulik for a while, they might have to change it up.
They run the flex.
It's a new offense.
And it's not just Zulik, it's a lot of coaches and a lot of teams where they're going to have to change their whole play style.
It will make it interesting. Lacrosse is going to shot clock next year. Mm-hmm. And so I think all of those sports that it's that where you can stall it out, and that just, those things are going to change, right? Kids aren't into that. Rick has always been good about utilizing the talent level he has and keeping his team in a game. And that's one of the ways that he's been able to do it effectively. And I think I've never been a patient enough person for stuff like that. And that's a fault on me is what I say I couldn't, I was always afraid if I ran something like that, how soon are they going to throw the ball away? You got that kind of philosophy. And I remember, I've had coaches talk about the 6 and 7 second thing where, I remember a team came into our gym and they had 7 seconds on the back of their T-shirts, and they wanted to get a shot off in 7 seconds.
Yeah.
And I thought, and he said, well, probably won't turn it over, if we get it. So it was just funny that how the different systems and the different ways. And I agree. I think back, I look back when we didn't have a 3-point line, and I look at the old scores, and we actually there were a lot of games where there was a lot more scoring, but the 3-point line has really changed, and I think. It's funny because we've had the 3-point line since 87 or 88, somewhere in that ballpark is when it came in high school. But I don't think it had as big an impact or effect until, frankly, Steph Curry is who I think really put a huge impact on it, both collegiately and at the high school level.
Yeah.
It's you mentioned to me about Will. Getting a dunk this year. Yeah, you got a couple dunks. And everybody gets that excited. But I mean, you got the threes.
Oh my gosh, you got obnoxious.
You got to have some sort of shtick if you make a three. You got the low three, and you got everything going on.
The three vein,
right? The three, yeah, all that. The 3-point, and I'm thinking. That used to be the dunk at one time, where everybody got excited about the dunk, and now, and here's the thing, and it's Tate, I'll let you in on a secret.
Yeah,
not many guys shoot the three very good, but they all think they can, and a lot of guys, especially younger, they're not strong enough. They haven't developed, and that would be another thing I'd like to see, like at the middle school level. Is if we want to incorporate the 3-point line, maybe somehow draw it into 17 foot instead of the 19.9 that the high school has.
Amen.
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, because it just takes it doesn't sound like a much 2.5 feet, but it I think would you get these kids whipping from the hip or it's just because. They're Curry. They're the next guy that's going to hit the three, and it's become the in vogue thing to do. And the 3-point line can change games in a hurry. It can change a game in a hurry. So
who wins a game of horse between Steph Curry and Caitlin Clark?
Oh, good question.
Did you watch?
Oh yeah,
Did you watch Iowa at all?
Oh yeah, I that was must
something else.
Yeah, that was must watch TV. I probably watched the women's tournament a little more than the men's at times this year because it was more intriguing. Mm-hmm. There was a little more. First of all, every bracket was busted after week one.
Right.
One. She's fantastic. In fact, there's a lot of women that are fantastic at the collegiate level right now, and I've watched a lot of women's basketball, both collegiately and some of the WNBA, because I think some of that can translate what they do a little better to high school boys basketball than what sometimes what the boys don't understand is when they're watching, whether it's NBA or college, they don't understand the size, speed, quickness, the hands, that these guys possess, the tools they possess. Yeah. And it's like, you guys, you're not going to, you can't.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah, you can't do that. And but some of the stuff I think in the high level women's game, I think translates well, at the boys high school level, maybe, more probably for our level division wise, obviously you get that higher division, you got some phenomenal athletes and it's a little different. I remember when shook hands with Aloysius Anaganye, and his middle finger was like halfway up my forearm. It's like, man, that is a big hand right there. That is a big man.
Now, when he got to Michigan State, I think he started a game with 3 fouls. Yeah, pretty much, right? Because he was always in foul trouble.
He played so hard, though. He was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, he was, and he was also in foul trouble in a state final game against MCC, which was helpful, but not helpful enough.
Yeah, how great was that experience? And
that's where I was going next.
Right, how great was that? And how great was Chad Plinus? To me, sticks out as one of the area's best overall athletes.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a joy to coach, and frankly, what was great was having the other guys around him. It was we had a really
Great supporting cast.
Yeah, and I keep a picture. It's funny. I have a like a team picture up in my classroom with that, and I tell the kids that it's obviously the most successful team I've had the privilege to coach, but I go through and talk about what they're doing today in their lives, and it's no coincidence the success that these young men have had, and they're not young anymore. They're all in their 40s, and which I think is young. But they're great in business or whatever career choice they've made, and they're fathers. I get Jesse sent me a picture of his son. Jesse Deering sent me a picture of his son dribbling the other day, and he says, "Hey, he's going to be better than the old man." And I said, "Well, his dad set the bar high, okay, so I'm going to wait and see on that."
So where's Jesse at these days?
He lives in Rochester. He is a president of a bank in Oxford actually right now. He's been in the banking basically since he graduated from Albion. But that year was phenomenal. Chad was. I remember an interview Lloyd Wallace, who used to write for the Daily News, had with him, and he wrote an article, and he says, what's your favorite sport, Chad? And he says, well, whatever season I'm in, and really, Chad was a kid who, he was, gifted, some phenomenal physical tools, but he played hard, he practiced hard, and he put the time in to be as good as he could be, and that's the whole thing. A lot of times is that I've had the good fortune of coaching kids like him and Jeffrey Carrier, who's now down at Davenport, who put a lot of time. Now Jeffrey was pretty well an isolated basketball guy. He played a little golf for me, but I think that was just a no knock on Jeff, but he wasn't no John Rahm with golf. But it was nice to have him out there, Chad, I remember he when he went to Central on a football scholarship. And he walked, the baseball hooked him on, and so he was on a football scholarship playing baseball. And then that spring he calls me and he's like, I don't know, they want me to put a ton of weight on in football, and I don't know, and baseball wants me to stay lean for pitching. And I said, well, football is paying the bills. I mean, they're the ones paying the bills. Yeah, I know, but what Chad had a hard time with was 10, 12 months of dedication for 2.5 months of games. That was a really hard. That was hard for him mentally, because football was kind of a when he was playing at MCC was kind of a summer prep, and you played the season, and if you got in the weight room, you got in the weight room, and that sort of thing. But I mean, obviously, collegiately, it's a way different expectation, and especially when they're giving you a full ride. They're okay with you playing baseball, but this is our priority. And then Jay Smith then gave him a preferred walk-on status to play basketball, and he ended up starting that whole season. He played his whole sophomore year.
So when if ever has that happened in the West Michigan Conference with a 3-sport Division I?
Yeah, I mean that
guy,
right?
It's just crazy.
Yeah, and he at the end of that season, they had a scholarship in basketball, so for the next 2 years he played on that. And it was funny. So the sport he got drafted in, baseball, played for the Blue Jays system for a couple of years. He never got a dime from CMU in baseball, but they benefited, from his talents and as a pitcher, and it's tough. I mean, he threw the ball hard, and he did a lot of good things, but you're not only competing with other Americans, you're competing with international right. players and the whole 9 yards. So, he was, a very driven. Still today, if he walked in here right now, you'd go, "Wow, he's."
What's he do now?
He works for Kellogg's. At least that's last I knew. Barry, his dad's still around, so he keeps me up to date pretty good. But he works at Kellogg's, and he he's on every competitive team he could.
Oh, I bet all those guys can probably shoot or hoop a little bit.
Well, he's on. He's plays fast pitch softball in the summer. He's on volleyball teams. He's probably beating them in cornhole, for crying out loud. But Chad's one of those competitive guys that you go in the parking lot and you start walking. He wants to bet the number of steps it takes to get to the car, or something like that. He's just wired that way, and it was neat because he and Jesse, they were definitely our two leaders without a doubt, but they weren't the best of friends, but they had a ton of respect for one another, and that was really cool to see. Like I remember there's a couple of kind of fun moments for me with those guys. So when I can't remember who I subbed out for first at the end of that state final game, but the other one waited for the other one to come off the floor together, and that's pretty
cool. Really cool.
It's hard to choreograph stuff like that. I mean, they can do it in movies and stuff, but that happened. They both kind of hugged me at the same time, and it was a really neat moment. So then we'll fast forward 20 years later. We're doing a little 20-year reunion with those guys. And actually, Montague was in town, and it was right after the first of the year. And after the game, they were all coming over to the house, but out in the cafeteria, I had a lot of scrapbooks and videos were playing on the television and different things. So I had to get some things put away before I'm trying to be a coach and an AD and doing everything at the same time. And they were the only two out in the cafeteria still. They were like the last two guys sticking around before they came over with me to the house. And they were like kind of catching up, and I don't know how much they'd ever even seen or talked to one another since they both graduated. So it was kind of neat, and they both helped me clean everything up, and it's a message that I like to try to send, that you don't have to be best friends to be great teammates, and those guys were the epitome of that, and they just had different people who were their friends, their hangouts, but they, I remember, I called a timeout in Shelby one time. We were struggling, we came out of the third quarter kind of flat and taking some bad shots, and I called a timeout, and Jesse would grab him by the chest and say, "We're coming at you every time, big guy," and I mean, okay, let's go. I was like, there was just such it was kind of a neat, just a neat group, and it's kind of been a double-edged sword for me in my quote unquote career. It was almost too soon to fully appreciate that, because there's a arrogant, cocky part of you that thinks,
I'll go back.
We're going to do this again.
We're going to do it every year.
Yeah. It just took me some time to build it up, and then all of a sudden I go, oh, well, that doesn't happen all the time, But in all honesty, you really, it is. It was just an incredible couple of years. We had a lot of good fortune. We didn't have a lot of injuries, that we had to fight off in the tournaments and stuff. We didn't lose an ankle. We didn't lose, it was good, from that standpoint. But still have a lot of great relationships with those, most of those guys.
How big was Chad? 6'5", 6'6"?
He was a solid 6'6". I think I had him listed at 6'7". I don't know if
obviously
he was definitely a full 6'6", and solid. He was, you just didn't move him around. He's about he's probably about 235, 240. I'll tell you, we used to have only the one AO gym, the little box there when they were playing, and I would always take, for the most part, I would take the late practice time, which was like 7:30 to 9:30, and then I'd go in my office afterwards while the kids were changing, and I'd do some work or something like that. And one night I came back out and make sure everybody was gone. It must have been about 10:30 or something like that, and I went in the locker room, and Chad's in there. He's got, I think it was either a math or science book cradled in his left arm, and he's writing things on the bench on a piece of paper, and he's got his practice stuff on still. And I'm like, what are you doing? I go, why aren't you home doing this? He goes, all I do at home is sleep and eat, Coach. That's it. and I said, oh, okay. And he was, straight A kid, So, they're just, just some neat neat moments like that, so.
We're getting down to the last few minutes,
Yeah.
but we wanted to ask you this too. And so, who are some of the other like top players or athletes that you've seen? Say Tate Stine.
You don't gotta lie to us.
Well, even throughout the area in the West Michigan Conference and stuff. Well,
Yep.
As far as area, when I first started coaching, like Chad Holmes, who played at Davison, where Steph Curry played. Before Steph Curry, there was Chad Holmes from Ludington. But so it was Chad, right next door, and
there's a Jeremy Holmes.
Yeah, well, Jeremy was mine,
Right. Right.
And so, definitely, at MCC, guys like Danny Altman, who played a long time in Europe, France in particular. He played a lot of professional ball. He had a really nice career at Calvin. Jeffrey Carrier, Dean Raven had a wonderful career with me. Kyle Cameron had kind of a quiet, start, and then he really had a nice junior year and a really great senior year, and got a chance to play at Albion for 4 years. And I hate talking about guys because I know I'm going to miss somebody over it, but I had a lot of I not only was did the kids play hard, I had a lot of good athletes, and I had good leaders, team leaders, and so there was a lot of positives there. But as far as the league goes, I mean, Drew Namick from North Muskegon, Nate McLouth, and we've had some phenomenal Harriman's Todd, and Todd, I remember he got a rebound one time, and my little 6-footer, guy, Nick, he grabbed the ball with him, and they came down together, and Todd basically just turned and let him go, and he came flopping out by the free throw line, and it should have been, I thought, a jump ball, and they called travel on Nick, and before I landed, I already had a technical, and he was just such a physical, specimen, and obviously, had a pretty good NFL career, but if you look at this little Ryan Van Bergen, who ended up at U of M, we've had some phenomenal track athletes and basketball, football players, baseball players in this conference that have gone on. I think the Bushberger isn't he playing some minor league
Cardinals.
ball?
Yep, the boy. Yep.
Yeah, and we've had some incredible athletes, and that's just the boys that I'm talking about. Sophia playing at Toledo, right now. It's really good, what we would call a small school league. It's been wonderful, and the athletes that we've seen and come through, that I've had the good fortune to coach, and then I have the good fortune to coach against.
And then real quickly, we talked about this off air a little bit before the show, but if you could say it quickly, what's next for MCC for the AD spot, the boys basketball spots? You said there was quite a few applicants for the AD job, and you're trying to figure out how to take that.
I was joking with Jeff Tuca this morning. I said, we said there was like 16 apps for the AD AP position. And I said, well, there's one of two ways I'm looking at this. I said, either I've created this wonderful job that everybody would like to be a part of, or I'm so bad that there's a bunch of guys that think there are people that think they can, do a better job with it. And he said, oh, no, that's not it. And so we've got a lot of interest, and it's still posted, I think, through next weekend. We've got probably 5 or 6 basketball candidates that it's all out there posted right now. And I'm and I've told Jeff this, I'm going to, because there's some people that I know, and there's people that have coached with me and stuff like that, and I'm going to stay away from it. Jeff wants to ask me questions, but I don't want to be in the interview room. I don't want to put my thumb on the scale, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to be perceived that, I helped handpick, successors and stuff like that. I just kind of want it, this is Jeff's building. This is his, these are the people he's going to be working with going forward. And I think that's, important for him. I mean, he coached varsity basketball. He replaced me after my first stint for 6 years. I mean, he knows basketball. He knows what you need to do, what the things that a varsity coach is responsible for, so I'm not trying to shirk my responsibilities or anything like that. I just think in small towns, small communities, it's a good idea to give yourself a little separation from it, even though it'll be perceived in some some places that he didn't like me or he did like me or whatever. That's neither here nor there. I just feel it's important to keep that distance on it. So I'm sure we're going to get. We got good candidates and good people, and like I tell kids, for years that we just keep seats warm, and it's just a matter of how warm you want the seat to be for the next person, that's the way it is. We're all replaceable. Sometimes we, if you would have been talking to me like 5 years ago about this, nobody can do what I'm doing, whatever. But I think as time you sit back and you go, there's probably somebody that can, that would understand what the T meant for gossip and stuff like that, But I mean, in all reality, there's so much tech going on, every day, every year, from the music that we can play, at games to our communication, how we're doing it media wise and stuff. And it's a little overwhelming, for a person that thought a fax machine was pretty cool to have. How did we work without a fax machine before? When I started, I'd fax rosters here, and we get it on that thin little paper and try to make photocopies of it. But but really, I mean, we're scanning and sending, and it's a whole different age, and it's only going to change more and more. It's just. Those are. I don't want to say a lot of this stuff was scaring me or anything like that, but it's just a younger person, and I don't feel like I'm that old, but I mean, a person who's more adept at some of that, is probably a good thing. It's probably a good time, I just think it'll be a good person, at both positions. So,
any closing thoughts, guys?
Well, I mean, since you're a Central Michigan alum,
yes,
and so is my wife, I would be remiss if I didn't say fire up chips.
Fire up chips. Yeah.
There you go, Jess.
Any thoughts, Tate?
No, I've probably got a question to ask you off air about coaching, because I think I might want to go into that myself.
Oh, okay.
But I'll save that for after.
All right. Well, great. Well, thanks for your years of service and everything that you've done.
Thanks.
Continue to do.
And I told you I can get a word in. So, so that's never been a real problem. So,
well, before we sign off, let's thank the sponsors one last time: Grieve Law, Big Stone Therapies, Greener Jewelry with Chris Dykman and Sarah Reel, North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems of Michigan with John Botten, Coldwell Bank Road, Dave Duesenberry, Scheid Plumbing, Heating and Cooling, and then our title sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage Lakeshore and Dirk Insurance Group. That'll do it for Season 4, Episode 3 of the CatchMark Sports Podcast. Thanks again for joining us, Tim Genson.
Thank you, guys.
And have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next week on the podcast.